Asian's Garage is now celebrating 100 years of service to the North Attleboro area. Asian's provides 24-hour friendly towing and roadside assistance to get you back on the move. From lockouts to blowouts to dead batteries, they're your local AAA representative. Take care of your Massachusetts state inspections without taking up a chunk of your day. Asian's Garage, proudly celebrating 100 years of service to the North Attleboro area.
North Attleboro House of Pizza is proud to support quality local programming on North TV. Quality is more than a word to the Awad family. For over 25 years, they have been using only the best and freshest ingredients. North Attleboro House of Pizza also offers catering and cupcake bouquets. Let the North Attleboro House of Pizza family prepare your family's next meal. Open 7 days a week.
Nearly 150 years ago, William H. Riley and his son Elmer started providing coal, straw, and other heating supplies to the people of North Attleboro. W.H. Riley and Son is still owned by the same family, but now delivers oil and propane as well as services to your heating system and air conditioner. Today, like then, you can rely on W.H. Riley for all your heating and cooling needs.
Welcome to the special edition of North Attleboro This Week as we update you on the impact of the coronavirus and actions being taken by town officials. I'm Peter Gay. Our little corner of the world is certainly different than it was before Governor Charlie Baker announced Sunday night, March 15th, he was closing all public and private schools across the state until April 6th. In addition, he banned bars and restaurants from on-site consumption through that same date, although those offering food are allowed to provide takeout and delivery orders. While the governor did not address shopping, Simon Property Group, owners of the Emerald Square Mall and Rentham Village outlets, closed Wednesday night for at least 10 days. The closures are expected to last through at least Sunday, March 29th, the company announced. The company issued a press release that stated the decision was made after extensive discussions with federal, state, and local officials. Quote, "The health and safety of our shoppers, retailers, and employees is of paramount importance, and we are taking this step to help reduce the spread of COVID-19 in our communities," end of quote, CEO David Simon said in a statement. The story of the novel coronavirus and the impact that it is having seems to change by the second. Last week at this time, North Attleboro Town Manager Michael Board led a panel discussion with town department heads about preparations and a worst-case scenario. I met with the town manager and public health nurse Anne Marie Fleming on Friday to discuss actions taken this past week and preparations for what might lie ahead. Let me begin by asking, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. A lot of things going on right now in town, but really, absolutely, an honor and a privilege to be a part of a great team here. Over the past 3 weeks, got to get to know a lot of the staff here in town and work with them in a crisis situation, and just absolutely thrilled that the town has a great team, a lot of capabilities, a lot of talent out there.
What is the latest you want to get out to residents?
So the latest thing I would have is just we're continuing to monitor here in town the situation, and this is changing frequently. The situation evolves minute by minute. We're in contact with state and federal authorities. We do have 3 positive cases here in North Attleboro that through the health director that we're continuing to monitor. We are closed to the public in all town facilities at this time, and we're undergoing a reduced staffing at this time. Everything that we're doing right now is designed to flatten the curve, to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, to ensure that we can still provide all those essential functions and services throughout town. For example, you can still put your trash and recycling out on the curb, and it will get picked up. That's happening. There's no change to that. We have reduced some of our services at the transfer station to Saturday only by appointment. So just call Solid Waste, get on the website, check out the hours, make an appointment, and you can still take that tires, bulky items over to the transfer station. Public Works, Public Safety, they're all still working. We're responding to everything in town. If you need information, go to our website at www.inattleboro.com. We're posting information as we get it. We did declare a state of emergency yesterday in town, and that follows the governor's proclamation a few days ago, and that allows us to apply for state and federal aid. It also enhances our ability to make decisions when needed in the town, and it also it's designed to help spread the word about what we have, what we're offering, and how quick we can do it. Here's the one thing I would tell everybody. Please, social distancing. If there's one thing I could tell you, this is something that actually works. This is something that's very helpful in slowing the spread. So when you have an opportunity that you might be in a public place while things are starting to shut down and close and reduce, practice that good social distancing, 6 feet apart. You can see that Anne-Marie and I are both standing around 6 feet apart. And so we're taking it very serious. Wash your hands. Continue to wash your hands frequently. Right? This is one of the #1 ways that we spread this coronavirus, and that will go a long way to helping us stop the spread. But let me reinforce this. Town, while the facilities are closed to the public, we're still up and operating. We're at reduced force. We're working remotely through online technologies, and we're rolling out next week some virtual meetings that we'll have in town. So we're adjusting. We're going to put some new software in place, and then we're going to pick right back up where we left off and continue to do the town's business.
Anne-Marie, how often are you in touch with state officials, national officials on what actions the town should take?
Sure. I actually am checking with the Department of Public Health quite frequently. Their epidemiology department are on call actually for any citizen if they have any personal questions, but to follow up to see what the risk is for our community, which still remains. They haven't declared the risk any higher. The last we heard was low, but we know as we're seeing the cases start to tick up that the risk level is rising a little bit, but it's still not that severe. I think that's one of our concerns, is that people are thinking because there's a public declaration that the risk must have been increased and is severe, but it's not. If people do the social distancing, wash their hands, stay away from sick people, and if they're sick, to stay home. So there's constant communication. The CDC is communicating with the Department of Public Health that sends that out. We're constantly getting bulletins sent out, messaging, phone calls, and just to be on top of everything. That's something that I'm at least probably hourly.
Anne-Marie, we're hearing about the shortage of test kits. Mike mentioned that there have been 3 positive cases. Were those individuals actually tested and the results came back? Is that what positive means?
Yes. I know initially there was confusion about the presumptive versus positive, but they're getting away from that terminology. If a test is positive and shows they have coronavirus, that's a positive. So we have 3, but we are right in touch with working with the authorities with them, just ensuring that the spread will be contained, making sure people know. There is some limitations on getting the testing, and I know people are concerned. It's the worried well that is more of a problem, because people are going for testing before they're symptomatic, and the test won't be effective. It's one of those things you really have to be sick. You have to have that fever and that cough, not just know someone who was in contact with someone who has a case. That's some of the information we're trying to get out to people so that they will know what the true risk is. And that just by being in contact doesn't necessarily mean that you will go to that next step, have a viral load, and be infectious yourself.
We'll be talking to Father Rodney Tebow later in this newscast. He came in contact with someone. He's in self-quarantine. So if someone feels as though they were in touch with someone who might have it, should they put themselves in self-quarantine?
I think it depends on the type of risk that they have, and that's some of the questions that I certainly can answer. I know Mike's going to talk about another step that the town is doing, but we want to make sure that people can walk through that. A true contact means you have to be within 6 feet for longer than 15 minutes, and they have to be symptomatic. So what's happening is that people are coming positive, and then someone's saying, well, I was with them last week, so therefore I must be at risk, and they're not. They have to have been with them for 15 minutes while they're actively sick and having symptoms such as the cough or having a fever.
Mike, Anne-Marie mentioned some other steps.
So, seeing that this situation, there's an abundance of information and misinformation out there and a lot of concern, the town is going to open up a nurse hotline starting on Monday. We're putting all the details together today, where we've taken the nurses that we have in the town from both the schools and on the town side to man some phones and take calls and address these issues and concerns. So working with the schools and the health director, we're going to roll this out on Monday, have a number where we'll have 4 nurses that will answer your questions, hopefully alleviate your concerns, and just go through those different scenarios. Hey, I was in contact with somebody 2 days ago, and do I have to go into quarantine? And they'll be able to work through that and then get them the information they need to put them at ease, or give them the right steps that they can take next if they need to call their primary care physician and take that action. So Monday, we're going to roll that out and hopefully just answer and help spread the calm and information that we do know is effective today.
I kept my distance while interviewing a candidate for town office earlier this morning. He was asking me, have I heard anything about the elections? In the overall scheme of things, it's not the most important thing, but people are asking.
Well, elections are absolutely vital to our system and our way of life. And this is something I talk with our elections folks here with every day. And we're looking to the state for guidance. We are preparing in the event of a mail ballot to send out to our registered voters the opportunity to take part of the vote through mail. Now, we've got to do some coordination on our end to make sure that that's right. But we're working with the state and with our elections folks here to make sure that whatever decisions made based on the guidance and how to keep safe and an abundance of concern for public health, we're going to be able to either reschedule it or come up with another means to make sure our voters are protected.
Anne-Marie, final thought? Final message?
Well, just to get the word out that people need to try to remain calm. It's really hard at this time because we're hearing declarations of emergency, take this precaution, and the message for that is that we're trying to flatten the curve. So what that means is that if you have a lot of people exposed at once, most of us will have no problems. It will be like the flu or a cold. We're just going to have a fever, not feel that great for a few days. But there are those vulnerable people, those who are older, who have underlying what they call comorbidities, things like diabetes and high blood pressure. Those are the people that might develop a pneumonia and get sicker and need to go to the hospital. We don't want that to happen, that within the community and across the country, that everybody is going to the hospitals all at the same time. So by doing this social distancing, encouraging people not to congregate in groups, that's going to slow the spread. It will continue. It's like most things. It will not stop it, but it will slow it down so that our health system won't be overwhelmed. And people need to know that that's the reason why these things are happening. It's not because it's such a deadly disease. There are certainly people that will have a difficult time, but the majority of us will really, we will have the coronavirus, we'll be sick, uncomfortable for a couple of days, and then we'll be back to business after that.
Mike, final thoughts?
Just reinforcing what Anne-Marie said. Stay calm. If you need assistance, reach out to us. Check on your neighbor. If you haven't seen them in a couple days, make sure that they're doing okay. Go to our website for the latest update at www.inattleboro.com. And if you have any questions, reach out and call us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
While they are not as involved to the extent they would have been a year ago when they were both selectmen, Town Council President Keith Lapointe and Vice President Justin Paré are still apprised of what is going on. The two councilors joined me Thursday afternoon for a recording of Inside Town Council.
This first year was going to be unique anyways, right, in terms of the time commitment for the council and the president, all the setup that we're doing, the hiring of the new town manager. So this was a unique period anyways. Now you put us where we are today, and I can honestly say I've spoken to the town manager twice a day minimum, starting probably last Wednesday. And before that, maybe the week before that, it was maybe once a day. But the last few days, twice minimum, and he's been doing just such a great job of keeping me updated so that I can keep the council updated on things that are coming out and the messages that he's communicating to the public. And we're working hard to try to be available to him when he needs us, but stay out of his way and let the professionals do their job.
Yeah. Justin, it's incredible how things work out. Had the charter question not passed, decisions could not be made by just one person with, in Mike's case, expertise in this field. Decisions would have had to have been made by a board to instruct the administrator to act a certain way. It actually worked out pretty well considering what's going on.
I think it did, and I think particularly we lucked out in that we hired a town manager who has such a wealth of experience in emergency management. His background, I mean, he's probably the ideal person to be managing this town through this crisis. We're probably in a better position just because of that leadership and that experience than a lot of other towns are. And I know if it was the Board of Selectmen, and I've thought about that too, because Keith and Mike and I would be part of that body right now, still making those decisions, and it would have been a totally different environment. And I was just thinking of Mike Lennox, and how busy and how hands-on he was. He would have been in the command center probably nonstop. That would have been quite a lift for him. So it's just a totally different situation. But I mean, I think we made I'm just thrilled we have the town manager in place who we have right now.
Superintendent of Schools Scott Holcomb announced Friday afternoon, March 13th, that schools would be closed this week and that they may reopen on March 23rd. Later that weekend, of course, Governor Charlie Baker announced that all schools across the state would be closed up to April 6th. Holcomb, who like most town employees is working from home, has been in constant contact with town, school, and State Department of Education officials. Scott, let me begin by asking, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I feel healthy. I feel strong. So hopefully that's the same for everyone out there too that's listening to this and maintaining their health throughout this duration of the pandemic.
It's obvious that either you've done extensive upgrades to your office or you're working from home.
I'm glad you asked. Yeah, this is my home office right now, so you can see the world map behind me and the grandfather clock. So we put into remote work as much as possible during this time to reduce the potential spread of people that are infected, just who don't know they're infected.
We were last together, it would have been Friday the 13th, ironically, for the pandemic discussion, coronavirus discussion, panel discussion at Town Hall. At the time, a decision hadn't been made to close schools. That happened later on that day. As it turns out, you would have had to have closed them anyway because the governor came out on Sunday and made the announcement. What went into your decision that Friday?
A whole bunch of things. One, the reason at that meeting that we didn't make the announcement was there was a conference call with the Commissioner, Jeff Riley, to have decisions being made of whether or not the schools would remain open or they would close. At that conference call on Friday that we had, Jeff Riley, the commissioner, had made the recommendation that schools should remain open. So you can imagine that Friday the 13th, we get the recommendation of schools to stay open. And there was a whole bunch of rationale as to why the decision was being made to keep it open. So a group of superintendents across the Commonwealth got together, including myself, to make a decision that we felt was also counter to Jeff Riley, but we felt we saw it coming down the pike. And so we decided to close the schools down in an abundance of caution to maintain the health of those around us. And so myself and other superintendents close by closed the schools down. And as you saw, that on Sunday, the governor came in and said that schools would be closed for a 3-week duration of time.
I believe it's the state of Kansas. The governor announced that schools would be closed through the end of the school year. That decision hasn't been made here in Massachusetts, but the longer this goes and schools remain closed, it seems so unimportant right now, but things such as spring sports, you've got commencement coming up, seniors, final exams. Have there been any discussions with the Department of Education about what might happen down the road?
They're beginning those preliminary discussions right now, but taking it day by day, but looking long term to say the what ifs. What if school is not able to open in the Commonwealth on the April 6th, like the governor had said? He had accidentally said April 7th, but then we went back and said April 6th is when he had wanted the schools to open. So we might see one of two things occurring at the state level. You might see schools canceled for a longer duration of time coming out from the governor, maybe something around the May time, or depending on how this progresses with the infection of people, we may see it closed for the remainder of the school year. With that being said, the reason I laid out those 3 different scenarios, either going back to school on April 6th, extending being out till sometime in May, or end of school year, the state's working right now to figure out how to handle things such as MCAS tests. Legislation needs to be changed for that, graduation requirements from the state level. So each one of those things is going to roll out from the state and be pushed down to local education authorities, like a town like North Attleboro, so we can figure those out. Some pieces will be left to us to figure out how to handle those, such as commencement exercises. But first and foremost, if we look at Italy as a model, I guess I've heard before that Massachusetts was being compared to Italy with the spread of the pandemic, that we have to really take a peek at the health of our society versus we start really thinking about long-term things like graduation. If health turns the way it did in Italy, I think that the first and foremost, people will be just worried about making sure people remain healthy and don't unfortunately pass away. That's not to sound the alarm, but if people, it is a very small world right now with technology, and it's ever shrinking. If people open up their eyes and look far outside of North Attleboro over to Italy, we don't want that to happen here, because the last thing people will be thinking about is graduation.
Decisions, when they are ultimately made, won't be made in a vacuum. For example, teachers, other staff in the schools, they're represented by unions, and union contracts come into play. The job of a superintendent is not easy, is it?
No. Luckily, we have strong relationships with all of our bargaining units. So I've already crafted up and signed an MOU, which says that all of our employees are on call right now and expected to work. That MOU was actually signed today, the 19th. So we just rolled that out to all of the administrators. And now we're crafting up a letter as we speak. I have some people working on a letter to craft up and send over to all the teachers so that people understand how they're able to work during these times. I made the analogy to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The first thing the school department did was make sure we keep everyone safe, so we sent everybody home. Second step we did was to make sure that we fed the people that needed to be fed. So we're working in a methodical way to provide safety. And then the other way we did that too was to make sure families maintain the ability to procure a paycheck during these times. And that's all a part of that psychological safety that Maslow speaks about in his hierarchy of needs. The third piece is interconnectedness to those needs that Maslow points out. You have to make sure people feel connected, people feel loved, people feel cared for in these times. So we're trying to, it's a methodical approach that I take these things. I don't normally talk this edu jargon or these things that we study, but everything we are doing has a rhyme and a reason to try to make people feel very secure in what's happening. So right now, we're now moving forward with reconnecting deeply our students with the teachers so that they feel psychologically and educationally more secure than if we didn't.
Scott, schools and the services they provide are certainly a lot different than when I was in school, certainly when I was in elementary school in the mid-'60s. You have students, even in a town like North Attleboro, that one of their best meals of the day is when they're in school. I've noticed in front of the community school that lunches and meals are being provided. Talk
And
about that.
I'm glad you pointed that out. That's we're proud of a lot of things, but it's one of the things that we're very proud of. As you saw, that was one of the first moves we made to make sure that our students could maintain, their ability to get the sustenance that they need, the breakfast and the lunches. So we're serving hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of breakfasts and lunches every single day in front of community school. And we have a devoted staff of cafeteria workers that prepares those meals, like the day of and the day before, depending on what parts of the meals are there. We package them up. The staging of that happens at the middle school. They're then transported via one of our trucks over to community school, where they offload those trucks and those meals, and they set them up under tents. So I just a big applaud the whole nutrition department for putting that together and their dedication during these times. So if anyone wants to go over by there and give them a high five or buy them a box of Joe or whatever we think is appropriate.
Virtual high five, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, 6-foot high five. You know what I'm saying? What do we do now? Just more of a crush your heart and kind of bow your head, or one of those crush your hands and bow your head. But thank you for bringing that up. Right? No real high fives, Peter.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking time out of what I know has been a busy day. You and I have been texting back and forth the last couple of days, and I can't imagine the virtual meetings you're having on a daily basis with not only town officials, state officials, Department of Education, and so on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Peter. Stay healthy, everybody.
Betty Poirier is among the state employees now working from home. The state representative serving North Attleboro and portions of Attleboro and Mansfield stopped by our studio on Thursday. Betty, let me begin by asking you, how are you and Kevin and your family?
We're fine, Peter. Fortunately, we're all healthy and no sore throats and no coughs and no fevers, and everyone's good. A lot of excuse me, people in town know that we live in one great big family house with my oldest son, his wife, and their children, and 2 of them are in college, and they're back home now for an indefinite period of time. So it's one big happy family.
A lot of games being played, a lot of movies.
Yes, actually, after dinner, a lot of family time, and it's actually kind of fun.
State House is closed to the public. You can go in if you want to, but in this day and age, you can get as much done at home as you can in the office. Although it would be a good time to go in because the commute's real easy, right?
I know. I'm told 45 minutes, which I haven't done in years. More like 2 to 3 hours.
How closely are you in touch with, House leadership, the governor's office? Is there constant communication back and forth?
Yeah, actually, Peter, working from home is probably more advantageous than working in the office because I don't lose road time. And I literally spent all day yesterday online and on the phone, exchanging information back and forth, learning, up to date, hour by hour, what's happening. And it's a very difficult and strange time we're living through.
Speaking of communication with the governor's office, the governor came out with the announcement about schools, about restaurants, about bars, Sunday, March 15th, and he was one of the first governors to do so.
Yes, he's been very proactive. When all this began, he was on a family vacation, and he rarely takes a vacation, and came right back. So, I'm sure this is a very stressful time at that level. But the people he's put in charge, Secretary Sutters, who was the Secretary of Health and Human Services, now is in charge of what's happening in our state as it concerns this disease. And she's an amazing, brilliant woman. And I'm very familiar with her staff, which is equal to the job. And I think she's the right person that he appointed for this position. And of course, he and the Lieutenant Governor are very involved on a practically a minute-by-minute time frame.
I've spoken to officials in Plainville. I've spoken to officials in North Attleboro. Elections on April 6th and 7th, respectively. I guess they need to hear from the state before final decisions can be made. Realistically, I don't see that happening.
Well, it's interesting when you look across the country and you see that some states canceled the election and some went forward with it. So, it will be interesting to see what happens here. But we've been told to, stay away and not come out. And so I would imagine that we will probably delay the election to some point. Because why encourage people to go against what you've already told them to do? So I'm in favor of delaying it, not canceling it, certainly, but just putting it off for a short period of time.
Communication with the town officials.
Yes.
Michael Borg is the new
Yes.
town manager. Have you guys been in touch?
Yes, I spoke with him yesterday at least a couple of times, and concerning updating him on different issues that will affect the town. So as soon as I get the information, I pass it along as quickly as I can. And I know he's tuned in too. We're very lucky, as a matter of fact, that he happens to be the person in charge now because he has an emergency background in his professional life. So he clicked right in when this happened, and he's very level-headed, very calm, and I'm sure he's making good decisions with the information he has.
And then finally, do you have any message for the people of North Attleboro watching? Any advice?
Well, people should heed what, what they've been told. They should, stay at home as much as possible. I know that's difficult for a lot of people because, particularly anyone living alone, it's lonesome. But go out for a walk or even just sit out in the sunshine. We're supposed to have a good day tomorrow. So I think people just need to keep their spirits up. I understand there are many movies being streamed online now that maybe you haven't seen, and do that. Talk on the phone to your friends. Just do whatever you can. The other thing my husband and I have been doing is we're doing takeout at our local restaurants because they are severely, severely affected. Not only them, but all their staff. And so in an effort to support them, we've made the rounds. We're starting to make the rounds of all the local restaurants. And please remember that these people are suffering right along with you. So support them as much as you're able.
Betty, thank you.
Thank you.
While Poirier represents North Attleboro in the House, Becca Rausch serves the town in the Senate. The first-time senator joined me from her home in Needham via FaceTime on Thursday. Senator, let me begin by asking, how are you and your family doing?
Thank you, Peter. We are fine, thankfully, taking all the precautions, of course. It is very interesting to be a senator in this moment, and also as my husband and I parent 2 young kids, so we are figuring that out, and grateful to the family and friends who are helping us manage all of that so we can keep doing this work for everybody.
How difficult is it working from home when you have 2 children?
Well, I am lucky to have a lot of support. In particular, my parents have been basically providing, preschool and kindergarten class for half the morning. Great, because it gives me a good chunk of time. Also, I am married, and my spouse and I are both working from home pretty much exclusively. I am in the State House today, but we're sort of tag teaming, so we're figuring it out.
State House must be like a ghost town?
Yes, that is indeed an accurate term to use. There is nobody here, which is good. I actually was heartened on my way in today that there's no one basically no one on the road. There's basically no one here. It is kind of eerie to have no one here in the middle of the day, although I certainly have had my fair share of late nights, so I'm not unfamiliar with an empty State House, but it is weird for the sun to be shining and for it to be that empty.
When did you get notice that sessions would not be held, that with the exception of coming in on an individual basis, the State House would be closed?
Well, the State House closed to the public on Monday, I believe. My office went fully remote on Thursday of last week, so we are fully remote, other than me being in the office today, obviously. But we are still fully functional. We were planning for it because we could kind of see the writing on the wall, and so we figured this would be coming. So my staff did a phenomenal job making sure that we were ready to go if and when. Which turned out, of course, to be when the moment came for us to shift to a fully remote system. So we are functional. You can still call our office, 617-722-1555. Our voicemail, we check it regularly, multiple times a day. All of our emails are working. We are here for you. And we are also publishing accurate, verified information, as well as updates on what I and my team are personally working on. We send that out by email. We've sent out 2 just this week already, including 2 last week. We'll be sending another one tomorrow on Friday. And everything is published on the website, beccarauschma.com/COVID-19.
Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker Sunday night, and I think this woke up a lot of people who maybe were questioning, how severe is this going to be?
Yeah.
Schools closed through April 6th, restaurants, bars, and ironically, I was at a Chinese restaurant in their lounge, not seated at the bar, but seated at one of the high top tables when the announcement came down, and everyone was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Massachusetts, as far as taking those steps, the state was among one of the leaders in doing so.
Well, the state has one of the highest numbers of COVID-19 positive patients in the nation, so we have to be. A number of my legislative colleagues and I would have liked to have seen that sooner. A number of us have asked the governor for a shelter-in-place order, not a fully restrictive one. You still go to the grocery store, you can still take a walk, you still go to the pharmacy, still get to essential jobs, of course. But people need to take this very, very seriously. This is a highly contagious. We don't even know what the real contagion rate is because testing has been so woefully inadequate. But we do know it is highly contagious. It has a mortality rate that is very concerning, and we need to take precautions. And frankly, seeing, again, it's heartening to see basically a ghost town everywhere I've been today. But we really need everyone to play their part to engage in extensive social distancing. It is the only way that we will not fully overwhelm our healthcare system, which is already nearly there. I am getting reports routinely. So I think I've had half a dozen just today that our healthcare workers are unable to access sufficient protective gear. Our first responders don't have the kind of protective gear that they need, and we have really serious issues here that need to be addressed. That's it's part of why I'm in the State House today, because I am the Senate chair of the Municipalities Committee, and we have a ton to do to make sure that certainly the towns in my district, but all the towns in the Commonwealth have structure and guidance and ability within the confines of state law to manage through this pandemic period.
What's been the reason from the governor's office why not sheltering in place at this time? And if not now, when? Yeah,
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask him and his team.
Okay. Down in this neck of the woods, of course, we are served by a very good hospital, Sturdy Memorial Hospital. Mm-hmm. One of the drawbacks, however, is they're not a part of a major hospital group. They're pretty much on their own. And I hate to say it, but as far as pecking order comes, when it comes to getting masks, getting testing kits and so on, they're probably at the bottom of the totem pole.
Well, I can tell you that the North Attleboro area has a very strong legislative delegation. I'm very proud to be a part of it. I was just speaking with Representative Poirier yesterday. I am confident that we will do everything we can to support the hospital and every resident of the region, which is necessary and challenging. You know, every place is strapped for resources right now, and that's difficult. And all the more reason why we need some very strong leadership from the state level.
Well, I certainly appreciate with how busy you are that you would take a few minutes to spend with us for this special newscast that we are doing, and hopefully we won't have to do it again, but hopefully if we do, you'll be available.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Peter. I, like you, wish it were under better circumstances. But again, if anyone needs anything, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or my team. We will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. And people are calling in, and I want to thank all of the viewers who are in fact reaching out with both questions and needs and also support. So thanks, everybody, and wash your hands.
Thank you.
20 seconds.
Stay safe.
You too. Take care.
State officials will soon have to decide what to do about municipal elections scheduled to take place next month and May. North Attleboro, of course, holds its annual town election on the first Tuesday of April. That's April 7th this year, while Plainville voters are scheduled to go to the polls a day earlier on Monday, April 6th. I asked Plainville Selectman Chair Jeff Johnson on Wednesday when a decision might be made about potentially postponing their town election.
You know that we were talking about preparing for some debates and interviews of candidates just a couple of weeks ago. But at this point in time, what we expect to happen is the Board of Selectmen will be discussing Monday night the potential to postpone our elections. We're getting some guidance from the state on appropriate ways to do that, and really some encouragement because the state is concerned, as am I, that all residents have an appropriate time and opportunity to vote. And given the guidelines on people congregating in certain areas, that becomes very difficult to manage when you have an election. Secondly, our election workers are largely part of the older part of our population, which puts them at risk as well. And I don't want to discourage their volunteerism and their service, nor do I want to put them at additional risk. So we'll be discussing that, and certainly that changes the timetable for things like elections, the end of terms for individuals, and as would normally be the case, an April 13th Board of Selectmen meeting where we would potentially reorganize and choose a new chairman.
Those of you residing in Plainville can see that edition of the Chairman's Report in its entirety on the North TV Plainville channel, Comcast Channel 8. Residents from both communities can stream that program, meetings, and events by becoming a North TV Insider by visiting the new northtv.net and clicking the words North TV Insider at the top of the screen. Closings aren't limited to government buildings, restaurants, and shopping centers. The 4 branches of the Hockomock Area YMCA closed on Monday until further notice. But essential childcare and food distribution and collections are still operational. I spoke to the Hockomock Y's president, Ed Hurley, on Wednesday about that decision.
It was a very difficult decision. It's been a very challenging time. For better than 3 weeks now, our leadership team, we've been meeting every morning, trying to plan, trying to prepare. And we know how important the Y is to the community. We know how important it is to our members. And we also were trying to balance that with what the public needs were and safety for our staff, for our members, and for the community. And over the last weekend, it became clear that things were continuing to accelerate very quickly. And we made the decision on Sunday that it was time for us to close all of our programming, all of our facilities, and we would remain open for childcare and for our feeding programs. And that decision was made, it was communicated to our members, and shortly thereafter the governor came out with his decision about closing everything down. So, I think we tried to do what we could to stay open. The overwhelming majority of our members in the community understood our decision to close, and the fact that we're still there for folks who need childcare, and the folks that we're working with so many different community partners to provide, school kids lunches now that schools are closed, is something that we're really proud of and something we're going to continue to try to do.
Most people certainly know of the YMCA's child care program. You mentioned the food program and feeding youngsters.
Sure.
Tell us about that and how that continues.
Well, we've been doing that for several years now in some of the communities, including in North Attleboro, partnering with the town here at the community school. Last summer we opened it. We were part of that consortium, if you will. And we've been doing it in the town of Milford for several years, where we're providing meals in several locations in Milford. Here, Peter, what we did is, reaching out to some of our school partners and some community folks is, we've expanded it to additional communities, and we're providing opportunities for individuals to drop food off at the YMCA that we will then bring, and, working with food pantries and others, we'll make available to folks in the community who may need meals. We're doing it as basically a grab and go. We've got a schedule. Folks can go to our website to see what that is if they're interested in donating or if they're in need of a meal themselves. There's different locations throughout our service area that they can come. They can pick up meals for their kids, for themselves, and just trying to make sure that people are taken care of during this really, unprecedented times.
Child care, has there been a drop-off since the governor made his announcement on Sunday?
Yeah, there has been a drop-off for sure, but we still have folks that are, that need our care. And we made the decision that as long as we can offer child care, those folks who are continuing to work, who need to work, who are trying to make money for as long as they can, we want to be there, for them. And then the piece about the first responders and medical personnel, we anticipate that need is going to continue to grow, and we've communicated that, throughout our service area to the different towns that the YMCA, it's something we think we can do, something we feel, an obligation to do, to be there to, quite frankly, help the families and individuals who are going to be helping us all get through this pandemic.
You mentioned the leadership team was involved in the decision moving forward, when to reopen. Do you look at the state level, the federal level, see what decisions are being made there?
Yeah, we'll be closely. We've been doing it, as I said, for over 3 weeks now. We've been meeting as a leadership response team, every morning to talk about where we are, where the nation is, where our communities are. So we'll be monitoring that really carefully. CDC is obviously a very important resource that we all look to. We'll also be looking at a statewide level, Governor Baker, the State Board of Health. And here in Massachusetts, a lot of the decisions in this area are also involved our local boards of health. So we've been working very closely with them and getting their input and our decisions of what we want to do to make sure that they feel it's in the best interest, of the community as well.
Information is available on the Hockomock Area YMCA's website, hawkymca.org. North Attleboro's Catholic Church is officially closed after the bishop for the Fall River Diocese announced Monday night that he was suspending masses and observances other than weddings and funerals. I use the word officially because the 3 churches that make up the Transfiguration of the Lord Parish, Sacred Heart, St. Mark's, and St. Mary's here in North Attleboro, would most likely have closed even without an order from the bishop, after Pastor Rodney Tebow and Father Jack Schrader were placed in quarantine after coming in contact with a person who tested positive for COVID-19. Pastor Tebow joined me for a FaceTime interview on Thursday from the St. Mary's Rectory. Father, let me begin by asking, how are you doing? How's Father Jack?
We are both healthy, going a little, we're kind of a little edgy these days and going a little stir crazy, but prayer is grounding us, and fortunately we have a good relationship, and things are good. All things considered. And I joked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I said we're all going to be on a 2-week quarantine, and I really still believe that we are going to be on a 2-week quarantine, so mine will just be extended. But we're fine. Thank you for asking.
For people who don't know, I read about it in the news. Actually, I read it on, I think, your Facebook posting that yes, you had come in contact with someone who might have been.
So, the director of Faith Formation, and the information is on stmaryna.com, which is our parish website. There's a letter from me explaining in enough detail. The director of Faith Formation came into contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. You do not have to be exhibiting symptoms. You can be asymptomatic, come into contact with the person, and in point of fact, you can actually spread the disease. So this happened on the 9th. Mrs. Corbese was in contact with this particular catechist on the 9th. I was then in contact with my director of faith formation, both on the 10th and the 11th. And on Monday, the catechist in question tested positive, not just for COVID-19, but also for influenza A and B. So she's a fairly sick person. So we are under mandatory quarantine for 2 weeks. I believe that comes to an end on the 25th, if I'm not mistaken. But it is what it is.
Now,
we're surviving.
people who attended Mass leading up to that, should they be concerned?
According to the town nurse in North Attleborough, no. Okay. That is the simple answer. Of course, you could see the tumbleweeds going down the main aisles of the churches this past weekend. We had no physical contact with anyone, and so we're not concerned. The town nurse is not concerned, and people should not be concerned.
How important going through what you're going through, self-quarantine, is faith to you right now? How much of I don't want to say a crutch, but how much have you relied on your faith?
Believe it or not, my faith is the only thing that is actually getting me through this. You know, Father Jack and I early on, we started Monday. We did a test with some friends on Facebook to see, and we celebrated Mass so that they could watch us, and it went off flawlessly. So we decided, and it's on our website again, www.stmaryna.com. They can click. You do not have to be a member or have a Facebook account. They can actually watch us celebrate Mass. Spiritually, there's a difference between a sacramental life and a spiritual life. Obviously, right now, we need to be spiritually connected. We're on our devices. We're watching the news. We're playing games. We also need to take care of our spiritual life. And I think that we've watched, as one of the administrators of the Facebook account, 3,000 people have either liked or are following us. And that is so edifying. As we're celebrating, I was the celebrant yesterday of Mass, and, I could see as I was celebrating the Mass, the number of people just commenting, and we're connected. We're connected in a very different way. We're used to being connected in a very physical way, but spiritually now is what we have to rely on. And my spiritual life, my prayer life, I actually think has, in the last 4 days, has gotten really much better than it's ever been in my entire almost 20 years as a priest. Just because I've been forced to kind of sit back and settle down and stay calm for a little while.
This is, of course, the season of Lent. Palm Sunday is just a couple of weeks away.
Yes, my palm delivery should be here tomorrow.
Easter Sunday. I don't want to make this into a financial situation, but Easter Sunday, that's a big week financially for the church.
Of course. And we have set up an online. It's extremely easy to use. If people go to stmaryna.com, they can click weekly offering and simply make an offering. I was the second person to do it. It goes through Gabriel Software, which is being promoted by the diocese. Armin Brunel happens to be one of our parishioners. He is the president and manages this particular site for us. He was the first one to make a donation. I was the second one to make a donation. It took me less than 1 minute to do what I did yesterday. And so I highly respect, I trust, and yeah, we're going to take a hit. I understand that. A local florist called me yesterday saying, "What about your Easter flower order? How can I said, "How long do you need before you put that order in?" And he said, 2 weeks out. So I'm looking at the calendar saying, uh-oh. I don't know what. I think our Lenten journey is going to be extended. But we still are the people of the resurrection. We are still people who turn to the Lord, not just the crucified one, as you can see behind me, but the resurrected one, the one who gives us hope, the one who teaches us that we can't live in the darkness. This coming weekend, we're going to hear this powerful gospel of the man born blind, and Jesus heals him. We are kind of spiritually blind right now, and we have to ask the Lord, and we're doing this through social media, really, because that's how we have to connect with people. We're doing this, and we're going to be enlightened. We're going to be that resurrected people. We have to be. We can't live in the darkness. We have to live in the light. And no matter how difficult and challenging this personally is, and I know for everyone else, we will get through this. We will survive this. We haven't seen the worst of it yet. And I'm not a scientist. I'm not a medical doctor. But the worst is yet to come. When we keep hearing that, I personally don't turn the TV on until noon every day. I wake up. I participate at St. Mary's Sacred Heart School. We have our wonderful principal, Mrs. Charlotte Lorenko, leads us in a daily briefing, if you will. Then there's some brief prayer. It's about 6 minutes, but the entire school. There are like 900 people who are following this, and it was just so nice to be connected. I miss my kiddos, seeing them in the morning, greeting them, and it's a challenge to us all, and we have to change the way we live, and that's the reality. Hey, it's La Festa di San Giuseppe. It's the Feast of St. Joseph, and I can't have a Zeppeli. I'm upset.
In addition to your role at the Transfiguration of the Lord Parish, the three churches, you're also involved with ministry at Sturdy Memorial Hospital.
Well, not just that. I'm also the diocesan director of pastoral ministry, and we've suspended distribution of Holy Communion. All of the staff who I employ through the diocese, they are remotely working, so they're just triaging calls, because calls do come in, and the calls have been very much limited these days, and it really is up to the local pastor or the local priest to decide whether or not he feels comfortable going into the hospital to administer the sacrament of the sick. I'm leaving that up to the local pastor or the local priest. Obviously, Father Jack Schrader and I are not allowed to go into the hospital for obvious reasons, as we are quarantined. But a little bit of oil on somebody's head isn't going to slide them into heaven anyway. We allow the Lord to be the one who makes that judgment. Certainly I don't. It's far above my pay grade.
Final question. I'm sure this will make you chuckle, which you seem in good spirits.
I'm fine, yeah.
Did you get dressed? Did you put the collar on just for us?
I did. That's why when you called me, I wanted to say, Peter, I got dressed up just for you. I've been in sweatpants and a t-shirt all week.
Oh, that's funny. Well, it's great to see you still in good spirits. You said the 25th, right? So
I believe it's the 25th. That's what.
So that's
the
Wednesday,
said.
right around the corner.
Yep, not a big deal. And I do believe that the bishop has said that he's dispensed people indefinitely. I do believe that we probably will see an extension of that, certainly. And again, I do believe that the government, whatever that might take, local, whether it's Massachusetts or federal, I do believe that there will be some sort of forced quarantine just to stop the spread, because that's how it mutates. It's just us being in contact with one another. But I can't wrap myself in bubble wrap and walk around, so I'll just lay low in the rectory. And
well, Father, thanks for joining us, and hang in there.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you as always, Peter.
Take care, Father.
Take care. God bless.
You have to love his spirit. The website to make contributions is stmaryna.com. A link to Masses is available on the homepage of that same website. That wraps up this special hour-long edition of North Attleboro This Week. On behalf of Chris Miller, Megan Miller, Jared Ware, Tim Scanlon, Kevin Daggett, and all of us here at North TV, I'm Peter Gay. Stay safe.